One night, as I was returning home, I noticed something unexpected. In my front yard, there was a shadow as if waiting for me. I squinted and approached it. This stranger stood still, like he had stepped out of an old movie. I quickened my pace, but he vanished suddenly. Right before my eyes, he was gone. After entering the house, an inexplicable chill remained within me. The coldness of the night seemed to seep into my very heart. The next morning, I woke up in fear and confusion. In my yard lay an old pair of leather gloves. They were vintage and worn. These were the gloves of that man. But what terrified me even more was that after that night, I began seeing someone leaving those same gloves in my yard at the same time each night. It felt like eyes were watching me at midnight. When I looked out into the yard, that shadowy figure would always be hiding somewhere. At first, I thought it was an illusion, but every night, at exactly the same time, I saw someone leaving those gloves. One night, I decided to be brave and picked up the gloves. There was an old address and writings on them. I asked myself, what does this mean? Was this a message sent to me? I decided to go to the address written on the gloves. When I arrived, there stood an abandoned, decaying house. I knocked, but there was no answer. I went inside and started exploring the house. On the table lay a yellowed old newspaper. I checked the date. It was from the 1940s. The headline pointed to a chilling murder case. It spoke of a man in whose yard gloves were left. According to the news, that man was murdered years ago, and the culprit was never found. I was startled when I read the name at the end of the article. It was the same as my grandfather's. As I read through the newspaper, I realized that the man mentioned not only shared the same name as my grandfather, but the crime scene's map marked my own yard. Pieces started coming together in my mind. Shortly after moving to this old house, my grandfather had buried something in the yard. Memories I had never revisited surfaced. Those gloves, they didn't signify the tragedy of a man with my grandfather's name, but pointed to a secret my grandfather held. My grandfather's past was something entirely different. He had crossed paths with a man who looked like him, and on the night that man disappeared, he left the gloves. The gloves weren't meant as a warning or a penance, but as a reminder that my grandfather had ended someone else's life. The secret had surfaced from beneath the ground, and I had uncovered the truth.